The recording has started.
All right, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let's see, it is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, meeting for our towing task force meeting. We'll go ahead and begin with the roll call. John Conley.
I'm here.
All right, thank you, sir. Captain Hahn, but I believe Sergeant Rowe is standing in.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Henson. Oh, I see you. You're muted, but I see you.
I was muted. I'm here.
Thank you. Jim Howes. Don't see him yet. Mike Padilla. Don't see him yet either. Dr. Pierce. I think I saw you come in.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you. Good to see you. Officer Prunsky. Haven't seen him pop in yet. Jeffrey Reister. Same. Haven't seen him yet. Nathan Riley. That's myself. I am present. Joyanne Rusha. Haven't seen her yet. And then Edward Schoenheit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And then Seth Thomas. Haven't seen him yet either. All right. So we'll see who else pops in as we move forward here, but we got a full agenda, so we'll go ahead and jump into it. We have some other attendees, which I think we'll get to here shortly, but we'll go ahead and try to stick to the agenda as best we can. Let me go ahead and pull up a copy here just so we can stay on track. Okay. So we'll see if anybody else pops in. If so, we may pause everything just to get an approval of previous meeting minutes. You all should have received a copy of those. Moving on to administrative items, a few things to cover. First of all, our remaining meeting for this calendar year is going to be October 9th at 2 p.m. That is a Thursday. So yeah, October 9th, Thursday, 2 p.m. So that's our remaining meeting for the calendar year. So please mark your calendars, make sure you attend. Just out of curiosity, I just wanted to make sure, that now that we were, most of the way through our current calendar year, I wanted to check and see how everybody was feeling with the current meeting cadence for 2025, and if it's something we should continue into 2026. And I'm also curious, if so, if we should hold the meetings in similar months, which for this year was February, May, August, and October. And we held those all at 2 p.m. on those on the dates that were chosen in those respective months. I just wanted to see if everybody was still comfortable with that, just so we can kind of start planning ahead for 2026 when we might schedule our meetings. So I just wanted to open it up real quick to see if anybody had any thoughts, for or against.
Yes, sir. I'd just say in the May, probably at the beginning of the month, earlier in the month is probably better in May versus the end. When kids are out of school and people start vacations. Other than that, I think the months that you have after school starts in August and October is fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks for your thoughts. If you ever have any additional thoughts, feel free to email Hadija, and she can make sure and add that to things we're going to talk about when we decide to schedule our meetings for 2026. We also had a few, well, actually, before we get to that, we have a few ideas of some things we could do in future meetings, maybe not for the October meeting, but maybe for some of our 2026 meetings. We had some ideas of things we could engage in as part of our meetings that might be helpful to people. So, but before we get to those ideas, I know we have a couple of visitors in with us today, so we'll get them talking here, so we're not eating up too much of their time. So we did have, we wanted to share a reminder on some of our annual training requirements. So the cybersecurity training in particular, obviously, if you haven't done it yet, we'll want you to do that ASAP. Hadija, I know, has made herself available as we've referenced that over our two earlier meetings this year. But we have also Ginny Brown and Bindu from our executive office here at our department. that I think had a few things they wanted to share. So Ginny or Bindu, did either of you want to take over for a minute?
Sure. Ginny
Thanks.
Brown, nice to see everybody. Ginny Brown, Deputy Executive Director here at DORA. And I know we were here at your meeting, I think it was the last time around, to go over a lot of specifics and details about the cybersecurity training. And Bindu and I came back because the compliance for the towing task force has not increased that much since we were here last time. So we wanted to try to accomplish a couple things. One was hear from you all to see if there are some barriers that exist for you guys getting on. Second, to also schedule your time so that Bindu can go through with you. Because sometimes I know coming into the bureaucracy of the state, there's a whole lot of checks and tasks and things to do. And we don't want to overload your plate with the administrative things, but this is a requirement with regards to participating on any board within the department. And so we wanted to just come again and make another plea. And if you needed help getting started on those trainings, we could introduce that to you now, or we could just go ahead and schedule some time with Bindu. And I just wanted to emphasize that with those particular trainings, they are more frequent, but shorter. So they're every month at about 6 minutes each for that. For now, the queue for the trainings that are waiting for all of you guys, there's about 8 of them to date. So the longer you wait, the more that queue increases. And so Bindu and I are here to try to ease that burden for you. And so I want to open it up just to see if there's any barriers maybe we can address right here and right now to try to help you all with that, to get that increased compliance. Hi, Jenny.
Hi. Yeah, I just didn't know that they were. When I took mine last time, I took all of them at one time, and I wasn't expecting more. I didn't know more was coming. So when I jumped on, I was like, oh, there's a bunch of these. So I did them, but I was just unaware that they were coming. And with the government email, you don't get notifications because it logs you out every time. So I forget to log back in and then get notifications because it doesn't keep you logged in. So like if after we're off this meeting, if I don't remember to log in next week, if you guys send me an email, I don't get the notification. So if I don't remember, because I have a ton of emails for businesses. So I forget to log back in and check it because all my other businesses ding when I get emails.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why I forget to check things. But then I jump on and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 3 classes to do. And so then I do that. But if it reminded me and I could see it, then I would, but it's not a problem now that I know to check it and that there was more coming. I just thought I was done. So.
Oh my God, I know. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate that. And I think that, Bindu, maybe there's something that we can work out with OIT that when they circulate a new training each time, we can send a flag maybe to task force staff so that they can flag it for everybody and say, hey, pay attention to your state email inbox or something like that. Yeah, because I'm the same way that if I don't get a flag for a new email that's come through, then I miss it. So thank you for that. That's very helpful. Yeah. And thanks for doing them. So,
you're welcome. They don't take long at all. They're not a problem if I just knew they were there.
Right. No, I hear that. Okay.
On top of it, I just want to add one more point. I have shared the presentation here, PDF format. So if you can check, we have few points mentioned there. Every month we receive these courses first 5 days of the month though. So we have everything mentioned in this presentation.
And then we can follow up to Bindu when new trainings are released and stuff. Just a flag for everybody, just do an extra due diligence. So yeah. Okay. Any feedback from other folks as well?
Well, just to hit really quickly on Jenny's point about the fact that maybe getting, I guess, more push notifications from that state email address might be an issue, probably not just for you, but maybe several members that we have here, just because of the way that it's set up as kind of its own little standalone email and not very integrated into other emails that you maybe have. Again, I know we brought up a few times, just the importance of, occasionally logging in, even if you're doing it, twice a month, maybe just set calendar reminders for yourself just to log in, just to see if you have any new messages. Because again, everything that we send you all does filter through that email, is how we tend to do things. So, meeting invites and, any other supplemental emails or whatever that we need to reach out to you and connect with you on are going to go through that email. So just occasionally checking that inbox, just here and there, just once every 2 weeks, it would be probably enough to stay afloat and make sure you're up to date on the ways we're trying to communicate with you. And again, I know Hadija sends out emails to all of you on several things. We send out 2-week meeting reminders and 1-week meeting reminders, and we circulate agendas and minutes and like I said, scheduling the meetings themselves, all of those things. So yeah, it is important to check that periodically. So I definitely appreciate you raising that, Jenny.
Yeah. And also if it's, a worthwhile strategy, maybe something we can do is have Bindu, she can have like a block of time for just open office hours. And then we can send push notifications out, Nate, to your folks saying that she's available, this time on this date, like do it a week in advance or something. And then people, could log in, check their email, and then, go through the process with Bindu if that's helpful. But maybe just a standing, office hours kind of thing might help. Anybody else have thoughts? All right. Well, I think so our takeaway from this is to definitely figure out some push notifications with regards to new trainings when they come available online. And then we'll also implement some push notifications that for some standing office hours that, Bindu can have kind of on a rolling basis, and we can let you know like a week in advance. And, see if that provides, the appropriate amount of assistance for everyone. So. All right. Well, thank you for letting us bomb into your meeting. And let us know if there's any additional questions or anything that you have, and we're happy to answer any questions. So, and we talk to Nate pretty much daily, so he can pass information on to us as well. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny and Bindu. And again, we'll try to stay on top of this. And one other thing I didn't mention before, if there are instances where you have issues logging into your state email account, which we have encountered before, just get with Hadija and we'll get you sorted out and get that taken care of. Because there are instances where if you don't log in for a certain amount of time, the account is at risk of maybe inherently shutting itself down or something like that. And we don't want to mess with that because it is not super easy to get these accounts rolling in the first place. So yeah, just another reason to periodically log in there and check in and make sure you're seeing the things that are being sent through that email.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right. Moving along here. So kind of on the same vein as, annual requirements like cybersecurity training, we do still have some outstanding training affidavits. So that's the training we took back in our February meeting, just our regular annual training about, legal stuff. And, I did part of the training. Kirsten did the other part of the training from the AG's perspective for the legal stuff. So we still need training affidavits filled out for that. Again, that's another annual requirement that it couples with the training itself. So I know Hadija sent out several emails about that. I'll have her, we'll have her reach out again here sometime within the next week For those where it's still outstanding, if we haven't received anything from you yet, she'll be reaching out to you individually to see if we can get that done. And again, it's just like the cybersecurity training. It's just an annual requirement that the department requires it. And so it's just something we have to do. So definitely appreciate everybody's attention to that. But like Jenny said, the administrative stuff isn't super fun, but we all have to do it. So, to check the boxes and make sure we're staying compliant with the state's requirements. So definitely appreciate your help in getting to that place. Moving on to recruiting. We do still have 2 vacancies, one of which is for the private property owners who use towing services. So that was Brandon Rich's old position. Due to his resignation, that position is currently vacant, as well as the one of the 2 roles that represents DI communities that are affected by non-consensual towing. That's the other vacancy that we still have. And then obviously, if you know anybody who might be interested, I know some of us run in certain circles, or maybe just know somebody who knows somebody. So if you ever have anybody who you think might be interested in filling one of those 2 vacancies, you can either refer them directly to Hadija and she can have a conversation with them, or even on our own towing task force website, it includes a link to the governor's website where the person can directly apply for those positions. So, we appreciate the help. I mean, we're doing the best on our end to try to recruit for these positions. Obviously, all our positions fill a pretty narrow role, so sometimes it can be hard to find people who fit exactly into the box of these statutory roles that have been set up. But we're doing the best we can, but any help any of you might be able to provide just in referring people is appreciated. And then there's our terms. So we all who are appointed to these respective roles and membership positions, we have terms that are outlined in the documentation that's issued by the governor's office. Because obviously most of us are designated, we are appointed by the governor to fill our roles. But we all have terms associated with our positions. We have several positions that are set to term out at the end of this year. So those positions, I can just name them real quick, are Jim House's position, Officer Prunsky and Joyanne Rusha are all set to term out later this year in December. So we'll want them to consider a potential reappointment to those roles if that's something they're interested in. So feel free to get with Hadija and let us know if that's something you're interested in continuing to serve on the towing task force. And then the last thing I had in the administrative updates portion is, like I mentioned earlier before Jenny jumped into the cybersecurity conversation, we had some ideas for potential things we could do as part of future meetings that we thought y'all might want to consider. Don't have to respond right now. You could just think about it, but it is something that we're thinking about on our end as we schedule these meetings and we, put our agendas together and things like that. So some of the things, the ideas we had is maybe considering having an in-person meeting at some point. Obviously, if we were to do that, we'd have to come up with a convenient location. I know some of our members are a little outside of the Denver metro area. So we'd have to make that something that we consider when we're thinking about this. But we could make it some kind of we could host a lunch meeting or something like that. It could be an opportunity where we could hand out, some posters and some other materials that the PUC's been putting together for the towing industry. I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. We could also maybe try to arrange having a guest speaker or something if we were to do something like that. So that was one idea of kind of trying to make our meetings a little bit more interesting. We could also schedule a tour somewhere. So maybe we could arrange with a towing carrier to maybe tour their facility in our official capacity to, kind of see what a towing carrier facility is like and kind of see boots on the ground, how the whole process works and, how things are organized and how they keep their paperwork and, where they store their vehicles and their responsibilities in that capacity, things like that. Maybe we could do something at the state capitol, something like that. We can make arrangements with a towing carrier to observe the process of a tow itself, see what an actual hook looks like, when they hook up to a vehicle, what that looks like, how much time it takes, what all's involved in that. Again, that could be something that we could arrange at somebody's terminal or at their storage facility. Maybe even at a lot somewhere that we could examine and check out. We could observe various parking lots to see how signage is displayed. I know signage is an issue we deal with a lot at the PUC. Obviously notice of especially non-consensually towing in particular is a big component. People need to know when they go and park somewhere where they like what's a potential risk of either being towed or immobilized or whatever the situation is. Again, something like that could maybe be paired with an in-person meeting if we were ever to set something like that up. I know when the towing task force first got started, I think there was a lot of in-person meetings that were done back in those days. That was all pre-2020 though, so obviously things were a little different then. We can invite speakers to the group. I know I mentioned a guest speaker earlier. We'd have to get some ideas of what people might be interested in. Like what would we find the most valuable? Like what subject matter experts would we want to bring in here to have conversation with us about, the things we're charged to do within the confines of our statutory responsibilities as part of this board. So anyway, just want to throw that all out there. These are things we're considering, adding in as part of, future meetings, how we might want to schedule them or things we might want to add to the agenda. But I wanted to throw it out as a possibility, just in case anybody had any, strong feelings for or against, ideas like that. But just wanted to let you all know it's stuff we're kind of considering on our end. So if you ever can think of anything, yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'm willing to donate my facility for any of that you want to do on the towing side. Facility, yard operations, hookups, things like that, tow trucks. Anything tow truck related, I can do all that for you.
Okay. Your facilities, remind me, is it in Arvada?
Yes, Arvada.
Okay. So yeah, John is being gracious enough to volunteer. And I've been to his facility. It's very nice. So maybe if that's something we want to explore and make part of a future meeting, it sounds like he'd be willing to allow us to come by and participate and maybe observe some things about how a towing operation actually works, in the flesh, so to speak. So, no, I definitely appreciate that, John. Thank you. Jenny, go ahead.
I'm 250 miles away, so I probably will not be going.
You are who I was thinking of when I mentioned
so
that.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. And if I am that way, maybe my husband and I will take a trip that way. That, if we could both come, we might come. If we can get away from our 3 businesses and 2 children. So,
Of course.
But yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
And if we can be there, we would be. It just would be depending on our life. So.
Of course. No, and obviously you're in a.
You can come here.
Yeah, let's all take a road trip to Grand Junction, shall we?
Yeah.
And I've done that drive many times. It is quite the haul, and I can imagine it's the same going this way. So.
It is.
But no, I appreciate that. And obviously you're in a unique situation where, something in and around the Denver metro area just might not be feasible for you most of the time, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, no, that's fair. And we can definitely respect that. But yeah, I definitely wanted to throw these ideas out as a maybe, moving forward. Again, we want to make sure this is engaging for all of you. And it's something you're interested in and excited about. So, we do have a decent responsibility here. Obviously, the legislature found this group valuable enough to renew us for another 10 years, pursuant to the sunset review that just got completed this last legislative session. So they obviously see value here. I see it as well. I'm sure many of our members do too. So we definitely want to make this a good experience for everybody. But anyway, we'll let you know kind of what we're thinking with some of these ideas. But just wanted to get it on the record that this is stuff we're thinking about. To make this more engaging for everybody. So, and of course, if you have any ideas, let us know. Send an email to Hadija, and we'll explore that as part of these conversations that we're having behind the scenes. So, thank you, everybody. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We're on agenda item number 4. Hold on, still check, which is PUC director comments. Our director was really busy today, so I don't think she was able to make it. So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5, which is our PUC Public Information Officer, Megan Castle. I believe she is here. Did you want to say anything, Megan?
Yeah, hello. It's good to see everybody. I had a couple things I just wanted to talk about. First, we are starting to do some more proactive work just at the PUC around the different topics and areas and industries that we regulate. And one of the things that we'd like to do is to look at just getting out information about towing. There's been a lot of new legislation and new rules, and we want to get information out about how we are helping the public and then navigate the system, help I've been towed, what are the things I need to do, help operators stay in compliance, talk about our website. And we'll also probably be weaving in some messaging around the other industries of booting and immobilization, since they also have had some new legislation and new rules too. So that will be coming out hopefully in the next couple weeks, and we'll just make sure that we keep your team or this group informed of that. And if there's, I'm just kind of brainstorming, but there might be media that's interested in talking with operators about this. And if there are, I know it was John from Arvada who just raised his hand, said he would give us a tour. I'm not saying that you would raise your hand for media, but if there are people that are ever interested, I might just flow out a media request if we do get one. You never are obligated to take it. But I just wanted to let you know that we really want to show the good work that's getting done here at the PUC. Also highlight, the work that the task force is doing as a part of this to support it. So I will just wanted to make sure that you had heads up on that. And then another piece that I'll just highlight is on our website, we have information about if you've been towed from a commercial area, a residential area, or a law enforcement tow, and what are the next steps to do. We've taken that information and put them into, I'm calling them towing posters, and they're in English and they're also in Spanish, and we will make them available. And Nate and I have been talking about how to get them out. And so I wanted to get some thoughts about how do we get them to folks here. I know one idea that came up, I think Jenny, you had a great idea, but unfortunately it's a little hard to do as far as just like if we would have a link and you could pay $5 and have it mailed to you. The state government doesn't let us unfortunately work that way. But I think what we can do is figure out how to get these posters to you. Nate, you also mentioned that you're going to be out and about, and so I wanted to just kind of segue into that. And if you had any ideas, then open up to the group about this.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. So yeah, we wanted to give everybody here a heads up. And obviously, John knows about this because he's involved, but the PUC regularly partners with TRPC. It's Towing and Recovery Professionals of Colorado. They're the largest tow association in the state. And typically they have spring and fall training seminars, which luckily they include the PUC in those. They usually give us an afternoon as part of a week-long training where we give a presentation on various PUC regulations and changes to state law. We had pretty lively conversations when the last 2 towing-related legislative bills were passed. But this year, I think we're doing it a little bit differently, where we're hosting different shorter seminars at places all over the state. And so we're actually slated to give presentations starting next Monday, the 18th, which will be taking place down in Pueblo. Then I believe we're doing one, and again, just there's more involved than just the PUC's part of it, but at least for the PUC's part, again, we're doing it the 18th in Pueblo, the 22nd in Lakewood, the 26th in Loveland, and then on September 10th in Grand Junction. So as part of those events, and in fact, I'm in the office here today and I grabbed some stacks of those flyers and those posters that Megan was just mentioning. I'm going to be bringing those with me to these events at these locations all over the state to hand out if anybody wants them. So yeah, that's something that we have coming up over the next several weeks where we can kind of start to disseminate this information.
So thanks, Nate, for providing that background or additional information. That was it for me today, and thank you for letting me join the group, and looking forward to next meetings, perhaps out in Arvada. That sounds great.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. So that's everything from our PIO. And now moving on to agenda item number 6, PUC updates. So just a few things I wanted to add or mention at least in regards to things that are happening on the PUC side of things. The first one I wanted to mention was data collection. I know it's something we've talked about over the last, several years in regards to, some of the policy considerations and things that we want to discuss, would be vastly aided by data that we can reference in relationship to the towing industry. As I've discussed in previous meetings, the PUC now has a rule in place that will require all towing carriers to report demographic and other styles of information on their operations as part of the permitting process. So the data to be collected, as I've mentioned before, is going to include the number of tow trucks that a tow operation is operating, the volume of tows by category. So, whatever number of consensual tows they're doing on an annual basis, non-consensual tows, law enforcement ordered tows, so we can get a better feel for the range and kind of where the work is being done. Another item is consensual tow pricing, if that's applicable. Obviously, not all towing carriers engage in consensual towing, but when they do, that'll be a data point that we'll be asking for, so that for them to disclose what they're charging for their consensual tow services. And then lastly, any other information determined by the PUC. So that's kind of a catch-all, just in case the commission decides they want to add another piece of information they think could be valuable from a regulatory standpoint. The due date in the rule, in this new rule for this data to be submitted is February 1st of each year. So essentially, the towing carrier would be capturing the previous calendar year, and we give them until February 1st to do that. So that kind of gives them all of January to get their ducks in a row and have some good solid information to provide to us by February. Now, that February 1st deadline is flexible, so we may, in certain circumstances, accept data after that point. But again, the way they put it into the statute as part of the House bill last year, HB 24-1051, they put it in as a contingency of the permit. So basically, now that these rules are in place, we can essentially hold these towing carriers accountable to submit the information and essentially not renew their permits if they're trying to renew their permits until they've submitted the information. So that I think will be a pretty good motivation for the towing carriers to comply with that requirement. There are, so the towing task force should likely be able to have access to that information, again, for policy determinations. I'm sure what we'll probably do is just aggregate it. So similar to what we did when we did our survey back in 2022, we'll probably just aggregate it, and that's probably what would be available to the towing task force, but it's still going to be a valuable chunk of data for us to look at when we're talking about some of the ideas that we kind of bat around. And obviously having some more concrete data on the size and the scope and, how everything is broken out within the towing industry is obviously going to be valuable to us. So that's coming. The first batch of data should be to us, in or around this upcoming February, which is just whatever, six short months away. So I think that'll really help us out once we can get we can observe that kind of data, even if it's in an aggregate format. I see that as being very valuable to us. Yeah, Dr. Pierce, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just curious, are the questions finalized for that for this coming February? And in any event, will we receive a copy just of what's being asked?
I don't know that they've been finalized yet. And in fact, we're starting to have internal conversations. In fact, I think we're having a meeting with some of our internal groups here at the PUC on this tomorrow to start talking about how we want to implement whatever mechanism we're going to put in place to allow towing carriers to submit this data in an appropriate way. But yeah, no, I don't think the questions have been totally finalized yet. Once they are, yeah, I don't know that there would be a big problem with sharing what's being asked. I think what we're probably going to do, just because of how they kind of put it into the statute, was largely similar to how we did the survey back in 2022. I think it's a lot of the same styles of questions. So I imagine it'll look pretty similar to the kind of questions we asked in the survey back in 2022. So yeah, I think they're already kind of taking cues from the work we did back then. You know, but just doing it on a much larger scale, or at least a larger scale in regards to what we think we're going to get back, as opposed to the survey where we had a less than 10% response rate. This is going to be way higher than that. So, any other thoughts, Dr. Pierce?
Well, on that, that sounds good. I just wanted to flag that part of the point of that survey for the task force was to actually engage in a clear analysis of consensual versus non-consensual tows, so that we could, you know, perhaps come up with some suggested differences in the towing prices. So, so to do that task, I think it really needs some review of the questions to make sure that the answers are reasonably useful.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And again, we'll have this in play. Like, I think at the very least, we're going to have things pretty well set in order. Probably at the latest at the turn of the year. So you know, late in December. Probably not any further than January 1st, because again, the responses are going to be due by February. So, you know, it makes sense to have everything kind of in place and ready to go, you know, a month in advance, just so people can kind of start getting in there and getting familiar with the process and all of that leading up to the February deadline. But yeah, no, I think we'll probably see a significant amount of work being done on this over the next couple months. So there may be something that we may be ready to share with the group, just to kind of give everybody a heads up on how this is going to be portrayed to the towing industry by our next meeting, which is in October. I wouldn't be surprised if we had something we could share at that point, just based on kind of how we're planning to move forward with this idea. But well, so for example, I know when we had the survey back in 2022, there was, I guess, confusion about how one of the questions was being asked. And so we got some kind of out there responses. So yeah, no, I agree with you that, you know, we got to be smart about how we're going about this and make it really straightforward and not open to interpretation about what we're asking for. So, because I do think we ran into that issue a little bit with our survey. So I agree. It does need attention. And I don't see a huge issue with looping in the towing task force on how this is being portrayed. Because again, I think at the end of the day, we're all looking to accomplish the same goals. And I know while this data is going to be valuable to our commissioners, of course, because they're very interested in the towing industry, I see it being valuable also to the PUC staff who, you know, implements regulations and suggests rule changes and does all that, but also to the towing task force who makes, you know, recommendations to the commission on rates specifically. So yeah, no, I think we can all collaborate on this stuff is kind of how I imagine it.
Okay, just to flag where I was headed, I'm hoping we can get the questions before they're finalized, so that we can weigh in and make suggested changes.
Sure.
Rather than being confronted with the questions largely after it's a done deal.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I would say it's not. I don't think it's a done deal yet. I think. Because the statutes themselves that were passed last year kind of hit on I don't know that it's limited to what can be asked, but it kind of gives direction on the kind of things that we're going to be asking. So, but there is still some flexibility on how we ask the questions to get to the data we're looking for. And so I think in some cases we're a little tethered to what the statute's kind of directing us to ask, but at the same time, there's enough flexibility where we can kind of get a little creative with it potentially. So I think we'll start with just a more straightforward approach as a draft, and then kind of see where it goes from there. I imagine is how it's going to end up working. So, but thanks for your thought on that, Dr. Pierce. Did you have anything else on your mind?
No, not right away.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate your comments. So moving on from that, I also wanted to mention, even though it's not really directly tied to us, it's kind of in the background for what we're working on with towing. The legislature passed a bill this past session earlier this year that has to do with the booting industry. Now, one of the things they did was they changed the terminology. It's not really technically the booting industry anymore, even though that's kind of what people are used to calling it. Now it's going to be referred to as the immobilization industry, pursuant to how it's described in statute. Because booting is just a term they're not really using anymore in any of the new statutes. But just if anybody's curious, it was House Bill 251117, and it did pass, and it is now state law. I think it triggered it had a safety clause, so I think it triggered in, I want to say it was like the very beginning of July, if I recall. Or maybe it was the beginning of June, I forget. Anyway, what the bill did, and again, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because there are some inherent similarities between the towing industry and the now immobilization industry. There's a lot of overlap and there's a lot of similarities. And in fact, when the PUC started regulating the booting industry back in 2019, the commission used the towing rules at that time. And again, this is pre HB 221314, pre HB 241051. So it was back when, in just the days where, the PUC kind of made a lot of the policy calls on how regulations and towing work. But back then, the towing rules, as they stood at the time, was largely used as a template for the booting industry. And so basically what they changed as part of this legislation kind of tried to bring the vehicle immobilization industry regulations up to where the towing industry regulations are now after the last two bills that were passed. So essentially they're trying to create some consistency across the board between the towing industry and the immobilization industry. And that's one of the two major points that this bill did is trying to bring those regulations kind of on par with each other, considering they're dealing with similar things. Towing obviously is the removal of vehicles, whereas booting is the immobilization of vehicles. So, but it's kind of a similar action, I guess, if you want to call it that. So that was one thing it did. The other big thing that it did is it expanded the language so that the PUC is the regulatory authority over all types of immobilization devices. Dating back to 2019, when we first started regulating that industry, there wasn't really any statutory definition of what a boot was. So the commission just kind of came up with the best definition it could think of. But when they passed this bill earlier this year, they really opened it up. And basically any immobilization device, anything that hinders the regular operation of a vehicle is going to be considered an immobilization device and therefore subject to PUC jurisdiction. So that's really going to open things up for us and allow us to apply a consistent regulatory approach to anybody who's engaging in those types of activities. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. Again, I know we deal with towing, not immobilization, but just wanted to let you all know that that's something that's happening in the background. All right, moving along to agenda item number 7, which is discussion from our work groups. So again, just a reminder, we kind of split up everybody that's involved in the towing task force into different work groups and assignments, which I'll just remind everybody of here in a second. So we have work group 1, which addresses PUC approved rates and categories and other state regulations. The members of that group are Captain Hahn, Dr. Pierce, A.G. Reister, and myself. Work group number 2 is kind of focused more on the annual inflation adjustments, both the mechanism itself as well as any potential alternatives to the CPI, which is the metric the PUC currently uses for that mechanism. The members of that group are Jennifer Henson, Jim Howes, Officer Prunsky, and Joyanne Rusha. And then finally, group 3 was more focused on consensual versus non-consensual towing rates. And the members of that group were John Connolly, Mike Padilla, Edward Schoenheit, and Seth Thomas. So we kind of tried to split everybody up based on their expertise and what seemed like the best fits. But yeah, that's kind of how we split up all our different work groups. So just a reminder that Hadija had sent out some, I like to call them jumpstart emails. And that was sent out several months ago, with just some ideas and some concepts and some direction to kind of get people started looking into these different, concepts to explore and things like that. Also, one additional reminder that we can always schedule side meetings for each respective group if that's something y'all want to do. Obviously, independent research on some of these topics can work as well, if that's what anybody'd rather do. But yeah, anytime any 2 members or more are meeting, we have to properly notice it in accordance with state law and all of that. But we're happy to do that for you. Obviously, we have some pretty decent gaps between our regular meetings. So if you want us to schedule like a working group meeting or something like that, we just have to notice it and record it just like we do our regular meetings. But we're totally capable of putting something like that together for you. I know when we first started back in 2022, we did something like that for like kind of an optional training seminar that we did. So we're fully capable of doing it if that's something people want to do. But anyway, just wanted to kind of throw it out there. I don't know if anybody's had any chance to work on exploring any of these topics, since our last meeting. But if anybody has anything they want to share or any ideas they had about any of these topics, feel free to jump in. Yeah, Mr. Conley, go ahead.
So, going on consent rates on my group. Can we go beyond the allocated? I don't know what, like on the emails that I got was like, here's some numbers to like insurance companies. The difference in the insurance companies versus like a grease monkey or something like that. They're like day and night. So I'm hoping we're wanting everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of anywhere you want to go with it. It's pretty
Okay.
open. It's pretty open-ended. Again, what Hadija put together, and she and I kind of looked at it together to kind of try to get people moving in what we thought were appropriate directions. But it's by no means limited to that. Obviously, explore in whatever way you want to explore, and go down whatever rabbit holes you want to find. That's no problem. We just kind of put together, some jumping off points.
Well, I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and then it turned into a coal mine, and now I think I've entered the center of the earth.
Okay.
And I don't. When you find out what I've come up with, I can give you scenarios now that.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I've located probably 50 tow companies that don't even have PUC numbers that are actively out there. Soliciting work for like $45 and $50. I've located some of them myself. I talked to them. I found out some towers that are actually with the PUC, that are registered PUC. They have PUC on the side of their truck, and they have residential insurance policies on their tow trucks. So you look at a residential insurance policy where they're just doing a Ford pickup truck versus a tow truck, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of differences. So when you look at his consent rate at $50 versus the next person doing the same exact work from the same exact customer, his consent rates are $150.
Right.
And you start looking at the differences between the consent world, just the consent world. The consent world is upside down right now because there are so many tow carriers in the state of Colorado that are running illegal on every front possible, that there is no possible way to get a consensus of a consensual tow across the state of Colorado. You would have to eliminate all of that data because it's unfair data. It's not a legitimate tow company. Someone who is legitimate, that has a proper PUC permit, has the proper insurance, has proper workman's comp, that doesn't cut every corner. Do you see the problem? Because I can go
Yes.
right now, I can go get 300 tow companies out of the 700 tow companies that you have listed in Colorado and have 300 of them that are illegitimate. So that could be part of the problem the state has. And that might be an avenue where we need to go deeper down the rabbit hole with PUC and how things are regulated in PUC versus when a permit is even given. Because PUC is giving permits to tow carriers that don't even have a legal tow truck. I have got a tow carrier that is a legal tow carrier in the eyes of PUC. He has PUC. He has the wrong insurance, and his tow truck is a single-wheeled pickup. That's against the PUC rules, yet this guy got a PUC permit. Now, how in the hell did this guy get a PUC permit if he doesn't even have a legal tow truck according to Colorado, or for that case, the federal DOT? And yet PUC gave him a permit freely. So there's the rabbit. Like I said, I went down the rabbit hole and I didn't realize that it was a cave straight to the center of the earth.
Okay. So I'm hearing two things here, which we definitely want to address both. The first is that there's a decent amount of companies out there that are advertising illegally. So no PUC at all. Illegal operations, we deal with them all the time, more than we'd like, obviously. So that's something I think maybe you, me, and Lloyd can have a conversation about and see what we can do about that. That I think is a big priority.
Well, but see, here's the kicker with that, Nate, is this bleeds into what is a consent rate in the state of Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do a consent rate in the Colorado, this is what I did. I called tow companies off of a non-listed number. Hello, my name's Fred Smith, and I would like a tow from point A to point B. And it is a basic vehicle, right? Nothing special, nothing fancy. What is the towers in the state charging for consent rates? Okay. By doing that, you're trying to get the data to say, okay, this is what our consent rates are averaged in Denver, averaged in Fort Collins, averaged in Colorado Springs, right? Just give them averages. What's the average out in Burlington versus what's the average in Grand Junction? What's Pueblo, et cetera, right? So you're getting this information. Well, if 300 of those are inaccurate information, it skews the numbers. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you get the right information without getting into the weeds with that company to find out, do they even have the right equipment or the right insurance? Because if you don't have the right insurance and you don't have the right equipment, well, then your consent rate can be 100% cheaper than the next guy that has to do it correctly. So as the task force trying to come up with what is a consent rate across this state versus the non-consent rate, and why are the differences? The consumers are always asking, what's the difference? Why does it cost $50 to tow it to the Grease Monkey, but to tow it half that distance from law enforcement, it's $300, right? and you're trying to answer that, the task force is trying to evaluate that. Well, that's what I'm saying. In the evaluation of that, you find all of this that's bad. That is a huge, huge problem. And when they advertise out there to come tow someone's customer's car, consumer's car, the consumer doesn't have a clue if the tow truck's a legal tow truck. The consumer has no clue that they have the proper insurance with cargo coverage. They don't know if they have the proper workman's comp on their driver or anything like that. They're calling for a tow, and lo and behold, a tow truck looking thing shows up and they tow it. You see how the consumer has no clue. If the consumer didn't know anything about this and they're just calling for a tow truck, they would have no clue of what liabilities they just went through. You know, if something bad happened during that tow, that tow company wouldn't have the coverage. Here again, how do you as the task force get the data from these companies? And these are companies that are supposed to be legitimate PUC permitted tow companies. And you're trying to take their information as a legitimate active PUC tower, and yet you find out that they are not legit. So how can you take their tow numbers and compare them? There's no comparison, is what I'm saying. And it's not 5 companies. If it was 5 companies, I would have called PUC myself and said, hey, these 5 companies are legal. You know, deal something with it. And I would call you or Lloyd or somebody and said, hey, here, I found this, right? Like when I found the Facebook Marketplace. Go to Facebook Marketplace. There's 200 on there that are illegal, right? But when you find 300 plus, I haven't contacted all 700 tow companies yet. What happens if I contact 700 tow companies? I find that 600 of them are illegal. Is there a bigger problem that the task force then needs to look at to say, okay, guys, PUC, we've got to do something. We as a task force have got to recommend something to the PUC to say, this is what we're finding in our investigations. You see where I'm kind of going with that?
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing when you're trying to come up with a simple project like, what's the difference between consent towing and non-consent towing? Well, when you start going down that rabbit hole and you start finding all this, I think that's going to be a very hard topic to differentiate between the two. Would you not agree? Or does anybody else have a thought on that?
Yeah, Dr. Pierce, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I think Ed's had a comment too. So would like to transfer my time to his right after this. So John, from what I'm hearing you say, there are at least 2 issues. One is that there's a number of illegal companies operating, and if I heard you right, that includes that they don't even have registration with the PUC. And so that's one issue that it seems needs to be addressed, and it's kind of outside of the scope of what we're doing, because the data analysis that we're going to get is from the questionnaires that the PUC sends out for registration. So the next issue is with regard to people who are registering. They have PUC registration numbers, but from what it sounds like you're saying, they nonetheless don't have proper insurance, and they may not have legal towing vehicles that they're using, but nonetheless they have that license. So my thoughts on that, and this circles back to one of the reasons why I thought it would be important for us to be able to weigh in on the questions, is to ask some targeted questions with which we can at least make a beginning of separating out the legal by the book towers from the not by the book towers. And we can use the by the book towers as our baseline and filter out the other ones. So the questions I'm thinking that we could ask are basically, what is your insurance rate? What are you paying? I don't know what you guys pay, if it's per vehicle or also per operator. But at any rate, we could ask targeted questions about how much you are paying per whatever the basic charge is. And then with those numbers, then we can have a beginning of identifying whether they've got the right kind of insurance. Another question would be just a straight off insurance question, and specify exactly the kind of insurance we're asking about. So do you have towing carriers coverage versus what you just brought up, which is just residential. It sounds like pickup truck rates, and so they're paying far less in insurance. So again, there are two kinds of questions. One, do you have towing insurance? And then we could even specify the actual title of that insurance. The other is, how much are you paying? And both of those could give us not only an indication of who are the shady carriers, but also give us a sense of the range of the insurance, some of the costs that are going into this, into operating a towing company, and so on. And that's really important data, I think, for us also to have just in analyzing the difference in rates between consensual and non-consensual. So it sounds to me like great questions, but they also seem to have the kinds of answers that would help us gather data that could allow us to separate out and set up a baseline for the consensual rates from which to compare the non-consensual rates. So that's just a response. Also, just if I may, I was assigned to work group 1, and this one is for me the most important stepping stone to what group 1 is going to do. And so if I may, I would like to be in the non-consensual consensual analysis group.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess these groups aren't really set in stone. I think we just kind of divvied people up where we thought they fit the best based on the topic that they were kind of charged with looking into. Just trying to think. We could switch. Because, yeah, John Conley obviously is pretty entrenched in that one now. So the other 3 members of group 3 are Mike Padilla, Edward Schoenheit, and Seth Thomas. I don't know if any of them would be willing to swap with you.
I would love if someone grabbed me with a crane and pulled me out of the center of the earth. I wasn't expecting it to go that deep.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's the whole point of this exercise is to look into this kind of stuff and see what rises to the surface. And yeah, I mean, sometimes you're looking for something somewhat innocuous, and then next thing you know, like you said, move that pile of dirt and there's a whole bunch of stuff underneath. So yeah, it happens that way sometimes, but it's good information to have, and it's good to put this stuff on the radar. I'm already making notes to bring this up with my team the next time I talk to them. So it's something we can definitely start looking into on potentially trying to address this stuff. But I totally see your point, John, about the fact that if we have, I agree. I mean, obviously the illegal carrier aspect, I mean, they're not people who are going to be submitting data to us anyway, because they're off the grid. Like those people just aren't going to be involved in any data submission. But if we have carriers that maybe are using, I guess, inappropriate levels of insurance, considering what they're doing and what the PUC requires and everything, that's a more complex issue to try to address, but it's something we can definitely start talking about. But I agree, if you have vastly different costs incurred through insurance premiums, because maybe you have a a lesser version of the insurance that's necessary to operate in the right way, that's something that would obviously skew the numbers. And like you said, going from, charging $50 for a consensual tow to charging $150 for a consensual tow, like that's a 300% difference or
Well,
200,
and
whatever it is.
what started
So-
it is what I did is I took my insurance for my own company, what it cost me for my insurance. I divided that into how many tows I do a year. And so it costs me $44 per tow a year for the insurance. So for every tow I do, $44 of that tow goes to the insurance company. So now that's liability. That's not garage keepers. It's not my impound facility. That's just liability truck insurance. So I'm looking at that. And then when I hear some towers say that they're charging $45 to tow a vehicle anywhere in a 10-mile area, red flags go up in the air quickly.
Sure.
So what's going on? How is it possible that someone's towing for $1 more than it costs to insure the tow?
Mhm.
That's what I'm looking at. To insure the tow, it costs you $44. So how can you make any money if you're charging $1 more?
Right.
So that's where it started to snowball. And then more calls I made, the deeper the hole went.
Got it. And I think I see your points. And this is stuff we can kind of start talking about, offline, to kind of see how to start looking at this stuff. It's stuff obviously that the task force can continue to talk about, but at the PUC level, now that this is on the radar, I think we could kind of start talking internally about how we might want to try to address this.
Yeah.
Now that we know it's an issue. So thanks for bringing that up, John. Yeah, Jenny, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, the same thing happens here in Junction, even though we're kind of small. It's the same thing. Like insurance raises every year for us, like at 26%. And so we have to raise our rates. And then we see the same guy from 4 years ago charging $50. And we're like, you can't possibly do that unless you're not running either, you don't have any employees or you don't have the right insurance. And I see the same thing that he sees the Colorado green and white plates on the back of tow trucks. And they're not running tow plates. We sell tow trucks, when we buy new tow trucks, and a lot of times people come from Denver to look at our trucks. I encounter most companies who come down to look at the trucks, they're not legal towers, and they're coming from Denver to look at our trucks. But majority of them don't have a PUC, maybe have a DOT, but usually, or maybe have a PUC, but they're running pickups and trailers. Most of the times, they're not even running tow trucks. They have no clue what they're doing. So, I see the same thing even down here that he sees up there. And then most of them aren't usually working down here. They're usually Denver companies that are coming down to buy tow trucks or running for Copart or something. But yeah, we see the same thing.
Yeah, well, and as you mentioned, that's usually one of the best indicators that something's up is, seeing a tow truck without proper plating. Like that's one of the just most obvious things that needs to be done with a tow truck is they got the white and yellows.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're seeing green and whites, that's usually usually a pretty good indicator of even larger issues than just the plates.
Yes.
So, and that's how we treat it too. Like when we're out there, people on our investigative team, they're out there looking around, they see what is clearly a tow truck or, somebody engaging in towing activities and they don't even have a tow truck plate. Like that's a good indicator that there's probably more than just the plate going on. So, and I know we put a lot of attention on those types of carriers, but yeah, these are the carriers that the PUC definitely wants to hear about, these type of operations. Cause yeah, it's totally unfair for, somebody who's, cutting corners, as John said, to be undercutting you guys who are doing things the right way. We definitely have to fix that issue. So, and I can see to John's point about how that has a direct impact on our data collection, especially if it's being done within the confines of all PUC permitted carriers. So that's obviously going to skew the data a bit. And we want to make sure that that's not, one, going on in the first place, but two, having that impact on the data that we're going to end up using to try to figure out some of our policy positions on stuff. So I totally agree with both of you on those points.
Well, your one-man show can operate for way less.
Sure.
Like us
Yeah,
who have a lot, like John who has a ton of trucks, and I have quite a few trucks. So we have to operate on, we have to charge more because we have a bigger fleet and we have employees, we play workman's comp, our insurance is higher. We have all these things, more impound yards, things going on. So it's definitely a lot more than a one-man show. So it's going to vary. Obviously the one-man show can charge less. He's just paying himself. That's really all he has. So, and maybe one of the questions should be, how many employees do you have and are they family? Because a lot of companies will run, with all family members that all live in the same house and all split everything. And they don't, they just split the dividends between them all as if they're a single man show, but there really is 15 of them or something. And, they're all family members. So then when you get into business, the families can pay each other less or whatever. I'm not really sure how that works when it's family members, but I know there's some cut in the law there too.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I get that. Sorry, Ed,
Yeah.
did you want to jump in?
Had one feedback on one question is,
Sure.
What is an acceptable rate for the state, or, the Utilities Commission to assign to a tow, based on the rates that we have? I mean, we know that towing a vehicle, legally with the proper equipment, not to damage it, is not going to cost you $39. We're talking about hundreds of dollars to move a vehicle in today's economy with everything they need to pay for. So as we get down to orders of magnitude, for a tow, whether it's, 130 for a hookup and 39 cents a mile or whatever that is, whether the tow costs, $250 or $400, that same order of magnitude, the cost between that is really not that much difference. Okay, yes, if you don't have a job and you get your car towed because it's not registered or it broke down or whatever, that extra $150 probably will put food on your table. But from just a order of magnitude perspective as to what's a reasonable amount, as the state looks to review this and put further controls on and set the utility rates is, the difference, of like, okay, well, we're going to set an allowable rate is $259 within 5 miles. But then with all the other factors that have been brought forward, maybe that needs to be $329. Are we really going to apply that much horsepower and analysis to try to save $79 on a tow or something to that effect? I mean, if we're talking a tow costs $250 versus $750, then that's different. But we're literally down, I think, to probably what most reasonable tow companies charge for a tow within 5 or 10 miles is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but $250, $300 for something, within that range. I don't think most people are going to sign up for a tow for $500 to get it towed 5 miles. They'll get a buddy with a tow strap and drag it down the street, for that amount. So I guess a question where is that line going to be? And, of the powers that be, like, what are they trying to get to? Because we're not going to get to $49 to tow a car. It's not going to be $99. It's going to be a couple $100.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay. So, and I agree with your points. I'd say on average, the average cost of a tow, at least from what I see, is usually somewhere your average tow. Nothing fancy. Maybe a non-consensual tow that's held less than 24 hours. Something like that. It's probably going to run you around $300 to $350. It depends on the circumstances, but it's going to be kind of in that range. So I think I see things closer to $300 than to $350, but it's kind of in that range. But no, I get your point. And I do think, at least from what I've seen, that Colorado is somewhat comparable to what we've seen in some other states. So it's obviously not exactly the same, and there's other components to factor in here, but I don't think we're like way out of the realm of reasonableness. Like you said, Ed, your average person. Yeah, a bill like that's going to sting. It just is, and that's unfortunate. And these are unfortunate circumstances that lead to that bill having to be proffered in the first place, which is unfortunate. But you know, this is a practical service being offered for, you know, really important reasons, like, you know, breakdowns and post-accident, post-arrest, you know, those types of things. You know, non-consensual towing too, you know, making sure people's private property parking areas are clear of people who aren't supposed to be there. I mean, these are all important things, you know, important to, you know, your average person out there who just wants to go about their day and their business. But anyway, okay. Well, yeah, thanks, John, for bringing this up. I'm glad we got to talk about this, and I'm sure we'll be having conversations about this moving forward in the coming weeks and months, you know, to try to figure out exactly how best to address, you know, what you identified here today. You know, as we kind of look forward to our data collection efforts, we want to make sure the data we're getting is clean as we can make it. So I think these are important topics to discuss. So I appreciate you bringing it up. Did you have anything else, John, you wanted to add on top of everything?
No, I was going to try to have most of that report put together before the October meeting.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for doing that. Did anybody else have any thoughts on, you know, what John's talked about? And I know Jenny and Eddie both chimed in, and Dr. Pierce as well. I wasn't sure if anybody else had any thoughts. Okay. All right. Well, I think we had a good core topic in conversation today, which is great. And I know we are coming up on time for the meeting. I guess I'll just open it up at this point for, what is it? Agenda item number 8, open discussion. Oh, and we didn't have anybody sign up for public comment today. I haven't seen anybody pop in that looked like that was their motivation for coming. So I don't think there's anything on that today. On agenda item 8, open discussion, I did want to just mention something real big, you know, what I thought was important here. And John, I'm sure you might want to chime in on this as well. We just wanted to make mention of, you know, the move over laws. There has been some recent news articles that Lloyd and I have seen on the PUC side involving, you know, drivers crashing into law enforcement and towing vehicles. I know this is something John feels very strongly about. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of put it on everybody's radar that this is still an issue, and it is still something that we talk about and we observe, you know, in real time as, you know, towing operations are occurring, especially on public highways, especially, you know, people just unfortunately aren't paying attention. And you even have, you know, law enforcement officers with their lights on and they're getting smashed into the back of them, and it's causing injury, it's causing fatalities. And, you know, it's something I know we feel pretty strongly about. And John, I know you feel pretty strongly about. Jenny, you as well, I'm sure, feel strongly about it. Yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
And I'm the president of the Slow Down Move Over organization.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, we just put on that big event. I know Lloyd came to represent the PUC.
Mhm.
And so that was awesome. So we are putting on more events, and we are trying to, you know, get the word out there. We're flying flags, we're doing parades, we're doing everything we can over here. But we would love anybody that wants to support over there too. I mean, on the board or anything over here would be great too. We try and do everything we can on this side of the mountain. But yeah, we would like to be involved more over there. I don't know how to branch us together, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. Of what you guys are doing and what we're doing over here, if we could figure something out. I don't know.
No, and that's great. And obviously, you know, we have a pretty narrow focus here on what this board is, you know, attempting to accomplish. But, you know, it's just something to keep in the back of your mind as we're having our larger discussions that, I mean, it's a dangerous job. It really is. And so you have to factor that in when you're thinking about some of these topics, you know, that there are operators out there that are putting themselves at risk, you know, being on the side of a dark highway at night, you know, just anybody could come around the bend and now you're in trouble. So, you know, it's just something I wanted to highlight and kind of point out there. Jenny, I appreciate you know, mentioning our participation in that event. I know Lloyd felt pretty strongly about us being represented there, and I got pictures of him and our stand out there. I thought it was great, and our director was very happy that he participated in that. So yeah, no, I think it's great. You know, it's something we want to support and highlight when we can. So, but I just wanted to mention that just for everybody else, just to know that it's something that's on our minds, you know, as we're going through all the different aspects of towing regulation. It's something we always want to be conscious of, that it is dangerous, and there are people that are very severely impacted by dangerous situations. So I just wanted to mention that. All right. Well, that's all I had here for our agenda. Like I said, we don't have any public comments or anything for today. I do know that we have, hold on just one second. I do know we have our AG here, Ms. Grooms. Did you have anything you wanted to add for the benefit of the group? Maybe not, but I just wanted to offer the floor for you real quick in case there was anything on your mind.
No, I appreciate that. If my camera starts here. Sorry, I've been having technical
That's okay.
difficulties. There
Oh
we
yeah,
go.
there you are.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything to add at this point, but I'm here if anyone has any questions.
Well, we appreciate you being here for us in your supporting role to make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to, and not doing things we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So we definitely appreciate you being here for our meetings and keeping an eye on us. But all right, well, thank you. All right, well, last call, we're right about 3:25, so last 5 minutes of the scheduled meeting. So if anybody has any last minute comments or thoughts, again, just real quick, we do have our next meeting scheduled for, what did I say it was? Hold on. Just had it here a second ago. It's October 9th. Again, a Thursday, October 9th, 2 p.m. Is our next meeting. So yeah, please pencil that in your calendars if you haven't already. But yeah, anything else anybody has any thoughts on before we break today? All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. We definitely appreciate your time and the conversation. I was very happy to talk about the topic that John brought up. So thank you again for bringing that, John. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the future as well as we continue to work on it. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Definitely appreciate your time today. And we'll go ahead and adjourn for the day. It's 3:26 p.m. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Thank you.